The Wise Bird and the Burning Tree. Long ago, in a great forest near the ancient city of Benares, there stood a magnificent tree so tall it touched the clouds. At the very top of this tree lived a wise bird with golden feathers and shining emerald-green wings. He was the leader of a large flock who made their home among the branches, and he watched over them all with great care and love. Every day, the forest was alive with song and laughter. The birds ate sweet berries, played among the leaves, and sang together as the sun warmed their feathers. The wise bird spent his days teaching the younger ones how to find the best food and how to stay safe. It was a happy, peaceful life in the great tree. One day, a strong hot wind began to blow through the forest. The wise bird watched carefully from his high perch as two large branches of the great tree started rubbing against each other. Wisps of smoke curled upward from where the branches touched. His eyes widened with alarm as he recognized the terrible danger that was coming. The wise bird called an urgent meeting of all the birds. "Listen to me, everyone," he cried. "The branches are rubbing together and making smoke. Soon there will be fire, and this whole tree will burn. We must leave now, before it is too late." The wise birds listened with worry and began gathering their little ones. But the foolish birds just rolled their eyes and waved him away. "You worry too much," the foolish birds laughed. "You always see crocodiles in a drop of water. It is just a little smoke, it will go away on its own." But the wise bird shook his head sadly. "Those who will not listen to reason must face the consequences," he said. Then he spread his golden wings and flew away, and all the wise birds followed him into the open sky, carrying their young to safety. The wise bird and his followers flew through the sky, their wings beating together in steady rhythm. They looked back at the great tree one last time, growing smaller and smaller behind them. Some of the younger birds felt sad to leave their home, but they trusted their leader. He had always kept them safe before, and they knew he would find them a new home. Suddenly, a bright flash of flame burst from where the branches had been rubbing. The great tree erupted in a roaring fire that leaped from branch to branch. Thick black smoke billowed into the sky. The foolish birds shrieked in terror and tried to fly, but the smoke blinded their eyes and the heat singed their wings. They fell back into the flames, trapped by their own stubbornness. It was too late for them. Far away, the wise bird led his flock to a beautiful new tree by a peaceful river. They settled in its welcoming branches and began to build new nests. The wise bird perched on the highest branch and looked toward the distant horizon, where a faint column of smoke still rose into the sky. His heart was heavy with sadness, for he had tried his very best to save everyone. And so he reminded his flock always listen to wise counsel, for those who heed warnings find safety, while those who ignore them invite disaster. Moral: those who heed wise counsel find safety, those who ignore warnings invite disaster. The Four Princes and the Kimsuka Tree. Long ago, in the ancient kingdom of Benares, there lived a wise king named Brahmadatta. He had 4 young sons who were curious about everything in the world. One day, the 4 princes came to their father with a question. "Father, what does the Kimsuka tree look like? We have heard its name many times but have never seen one." The king smiled and called for his trusted charioteer. "Take each of my sons, one at a time, to see the Kimsuka tree in the royal forest," he said with a twinkle in his eye. The charioteer bowed and took the first prince on the journey. But instead of taking all 4 brothers together, he had a clever plan. He would show each prince the tree at a different time of year. The charioteer took the first prince to see the Kimsuka tree in the cold winter season. At that time, the tree had shed all its leaves and stood bare, with only its dark trunk and branches reaching into the grey sky. It looked like a burnt stump. The first prince stared and nodded. "Now I know what the Kimsuka tree looks like," he said confidently. "It looks like a charred pillar." When spring arrived, the charioteer took the second prince to the same tree. Now the Kimsuka tree had burst into fresh green life. Tender young leaves covered every branch, making it look full and lush, like a beautiful banyan tree. The second prince smiled. "Ah, so this is the Kimsuka tree," he said. "It is a lovely green tree, just like a banyan." In the heat of summer, when the Kimsuka tree burst into glorious bloom, the charioteer brought the third prince. The entire tree was covered in brilliant flame red and orange flowers, so thick that not a single leaf could be seen. It glowed like a tree made entirely of fire. The third prince gasped in wonder. "What a magnificent tree," he exclaimed. "It looks like it is made of bright red meat." Finally, in autumn, the charioteer took the fourth prince to the tree. By now, the flowers had fallen away, and the tree was covered in long seed pods that dangled from every branch, rattling gently in the breeze. The fourth prince studied it carefully. "I see," he said quietly. "The Kimsuka tree looks just like an acacia tree, with all those hanging pods." When the four brothers finally sat together and began talking about the Kimsuka tree, a great argument broke out. "The Kimsuka tree looks like a burnt stump," said the first prince. "No, no, it is a green leafy tree like a banyan," insisted the second. "You are both wrong," cried the third. "It is covered in brilliant red flowers." "You are all mistaken," said the fourth. "It has long dangling pods." Each prince was sure he was right, and the argument grew louder and louder. The four princes went to their father to settle the argument. The wise King Brahmadatta listened to each son and smiled. "My dear children, you have all seen the same tree," he said gently. "But each of you saw it at a different time. The Kimsuka tree changes with the seasons, bare in winter, green in spring, red with flowers in summer, and full of pods in autumn. You are all right, and you are all wrong. Each of you saw only a part of the truth." The four princes looked at each other with surprise, then slowly began to smile. They understood now. None of them had been wrong, but none of them had been completely right either. The truth was bigger than what any one of them had seen alone. From that day on, the four princes always remembered to ask questions, listen to others, and never assume they knew the whole story from just one look. Moral: no one can see the whole truth from just one point of view. Listen to others to understand the complete picture. The fish who argued about beauty. Long ago, where two great rivers met in ancient India, there lived a magnificent golden fish named Ganga. Her scales sparkled like pure gold in the sunlight, and her fins flowed like silk ribbons in the water. Ganga loved to swim near the surface where everyone could admire her dazzling beauty. She was the proudest fish in all the Ganges River, and she believed no creature in the world was more beautiful than she. In the nearby Jumna River, there lived an equally stunning silver-blue fish, also named after her river. Jumna's scales shimmered like moonlight on water, and her delicate blue-tipped fins danced gracefully as she swam. She too believed she was the most beautiful fish in all the rivers. One sunny morning, the two fish happened to meet where the rivers joined together. They stared at each other in surprise, for neither had ever seen another fish so lovely before. But instead of becoming friends, the two fish began to argue. "I am clearly the most beautiful fish in all the rivers," declared Ganga, flashing her golden scales in the sunlight. "My scales shine like the sun itself." "Nonsense," replied Jumna, swishing her silvery tail proudly. "My scales glow like the moon and stars. Everyone knows moonlight is far more beautiful than sunlight." They swam in circles around each other, each one showing off her finest fins and most dazzling scales, growing angrier and angrier. Just then, old Kachwa the turtle came slowly paddling by. He was a comical old fellow with a bumpy mossy shell and a wrinkled smiling face. "You there, Mr. Turtle," called Ganga. "Please settle our argument. Which of us is more beautiful?" Kachwa looked at Ganga's golden scales. Then he looked at Jumna's silver-blue shimmer. He scratched his mossy shell thoughtfully. "Well," he said with a big self-satisfied grin, "I have looked at both of you very carefully. And the most beautiful creature here is obviously me." And he paddled away chuckling, leaving both fish speechless with their mouths wide open. The two fish were furious. "How dare that wrinkly old turtle call himself beautiful?" gasped Ganga. "He has a bumpy shell covered in moss. His eyes are tiny. And he is so slow," added Jumna angrily. "He is the silliest creature in the whole river." But as the two fish complained together about Kachwa, something strange happened. They looked at each other and suddenly burst out laughing. They realized they sounded just as silly as the turtle, arguing about who looked the prettiest. A tall, elegant white crane had been watching from the shallow water nearby. He was known as the wisest bird along the river. "Dear fish," he said in a calm, gentle voice, Old Quechua has taught you a wonderful lesson without even trying. You see, everyone thinks they are the most beautiful. The turtle thinks his mossy shell is lovely. You each think your scales are the finest. But does arguing about it make either of you more beautiful? The two fish shook their heads slowly, beginning to understand. True beauty, continued the wise crane, is not in how you look on the outside. It is in how you treat others. A kind heart shines brighter than the most dazzling scales. Instead of arguing about who looks better, why not discover what makes each other special on the inside? Gonga turned to Jumna and said softly, I have heard that fish from the Jumna River are the kindest and most helpful in all the land. And I have heard, smiled Jumna, that Ganges fish are the bravest and most generous. Perhaps we have been looking at the wrong kind of beauty all along. From that day on, Gonga and Jumna became the very best of friends. They swam together where the rivers met, sharing stories and helping other fish in need. Gonga admired Jumna's patience and gentleness, while Jumna loved Gonga's courage and cheerfulness. And whenever they spotted old Quechua paddling by with his self-satisfied grin, they would smile and wave their fins in thanks. For it was his silly boast that had helped them see the truth. True beauty is not in how you look, but in how you treat others. A kind heart shines brighter than the most dazzling scales. Moral: true beauty is not in how you look, but in how you treat others. A kind heart shines brighter than the most dazzling scales.